Today is August 3rd, 2026. It's 5:30 p.m. And today we are offering you the chance to view the Billings City Council work session. We're happy that you're here. I'm going to call the meeting to order in just a minute, but regarding public speech, I'd just like to point a few things out. We do have some items on the agenda that are very important to folks. And so to initiate and make sure that everybody's free speech and willingness to speak out is protected. I see and thank you to the folks with signs that you sat in the front row. That way the council has full view of your signs and we can get the full effect of them. But please remember, one of our rules and that we've agreed to operate by is that the signs will stay down here below your head. People in Montana have a right to view and take part in government and to watch it. And so if we hold our signs above our heads, we'll be infringing on those rights. Also, people have a First Amendment right to free speech. And if we get a little bit vocal about those, we may intimidate others from speaking out, and we certainly don't want to do that. Believe me, we want to hear what you have to say. So with that, I'm calling the meeting to order and opening the public comment. This will be a public comment period on all items. This is the time to comment on any matter, agenda or non-agenda, falling within the scope of the Billings City Council. Another rule, please, that we've lived by for as long as I've been here, you may only speak once for each item during the meeting. So if you choose to speak now on item 3 or item 2, when those items come up, you've already used your turn. So please, sir, ma'am, state your name and your address, and then take your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Lane Dorsey. I'm a member of the Billings Alliance for Immigrant Rights, and I'm here to speak on the dissolution of the Citizens Police Advisory Board, among other things. The Citizens Police Advisory Board was dissolved by a slim majority in spite of clear public disapproval. People gave public comment. People from the community came and gave public comment against the dissolution, and it happened anyway. And then after the fact, we can see members of the community are very upset. The people who voted for this to be dissolved were Roy Neese, Bill Kennedy, Dennis Pittman, Scott Aspenleiter, Mike Boyett, and Tony O'Donnell. So, you know, the whole point of this is for you to allegedly listen to us, but when people come and they give their comments and you disregard their comments and decide to dissolve a board, the board that is supposed to actually increase public connection and democracy in our city, it kind of tells me that you're not listening. In fact, you know, it's not just those 6 members. It seems like the entire city council is not listening. Our organization, BEAR, has been reaching out since the beginning of June, and we've, you know, submitted public comment in the past, but we've specifically been reaching out for a meeting and haven't heard any confirmation. In fact, I just spoke with the mayor, and he said he wouldn't meet with us. So if he cares about what we have to say, I would ask that he does meet with us. And, you know, at our previous meeting that we attended, we gave you our demands for a sanctuary city, which we're here to reiterate, and it had our contact information. So there's absolutely no excuse for any members of the council, especially the ones who, in words, say that they stand for a sanctuary city, but won't actually reach out to us for a meeting or any kind of discussion. There's really no reason. You have our contact information and you know what we stand for. So to not meet with us when we've been politely asking via email like we were told to, it's pretty shameful, honestly. I will read those demands. The Billings Alliance for Immigrant Rights demands that the Billings City Council passes an ordinance containing the following measures for a sanctuary city. During pedestrian or vehicle stops, Billings PD will not ask the person being stopped about their immigration status. Making immigration-related stops and arrests the lowest priority of Billings PD. Billings PD must not volunteer personal information of immigrants to federal immigration agencies like ICE, Border Patrol, or DHS. Prohibit Billings PD from signing on to a 287G agreement with ICE. The City of Billings must cancel all current land use agreements with federal immigration agencies and bar future agreements from being signed. The City of Billings must prevent local jails from being used for federal immigration detentions.
Thank you.
And Billings PD must prohibit the use of Billings PD vehicles and equipment by federal immigration agencies like ICE and Border Patrol. Thank you. You know our demands. Everybody here knows our demands. Meet with us and actually give us the time of day.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ann Clancy, and I stand in support of the Billings Alliance for Immigrant Rights demands for no model cities initiative, no police cooperation with ICE, and in favor of a sanctuary city in Billings. But I also want to address the blatant effort to dissolve the citizen advisory boards and committees currently underway. The intent is to eliminate as much citizen oversight and community input into city government as possible. This is part of an overall trend of the current administration to eliminate all avenues of holding federal, state, and local governments accountable. So as elected representatives of this community, you are being duped if you believe the elimination of these boards is about relevance and low attendance. It is an intentional regression away from partnership and collaboration values that are intended to bring citizens and local government together. It's a deliberate move toward more political domination and less citizen involvement. Your job as city council members is to govern the city, set policy, manage resources, and ensure accountability and public engagement. It is not your job to join the ranks of those who would weaken our government for their own gain. We are being attacked on all fronts to anything related to the values and practices of partnership, cooperation, collaboration, and mutual support. And we are witnessing the most unbelievable rise of corruption at the federal level of our government and how it is perpetuated through fear, intimidation, and the removal of avenues of accountability and cooperation. So by allowing this to happen, you are contributing to and supporting the means to divide our citizenry, weaken our local government, and allow corrupt practices into our own community. Sorry, I can't see you and read at the same time, so I beg you, do not go backwards. Do not go backwards. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Homa Masood, and I'm speaking as part of the Billings Alliance for Immigrant Rights. Just 2 weeks ago, members of our group stood in this chamber asking you to make Billings a sanctuary city, so that Billings can be a place where our immigrant community members can live without fear, and where our local government prioritizes the well-being of everyone who calls this city home. Now, while still not having given us a response, you are considering the Model Cities Initiative, a proposal that moves us precisely in the opposite direction. This grant is being advertised as an investment in public safety, but in reality, it would make Billings even more deeply intertwined with a federal immigration enforcement system that has terrorized immigrant communities across Montana and across the country. At a time when families in our own state are already living with the fear of ICE raids and detention, this is not the direction our city should take. As a citizen of Billings whose parents are both immigrants, in fact, as a person who believes that every person deserves dignity regardless of where they were born, I cannot support policies that make our city a more effective extension of ICE. When immigrant families fear that interactions with local government could expose them to deportation, they become less likely to report crimes, seek medical care, or cooperate with public institutions. That makes all of us less safe, and it worsens our community. I also ask you to consider what kind of city we're building. Do we want to become known for investing in surveillance infrastructure or federal immigration partnerships? Or do we want to invest in education, affordable housing, and community services that actually address the root causes of insecurity instead of unnecessarily promoting terror? A grant like this is never free, and every grant comes with priorities and conditions. If those conditions require Billings to surrender local decision-making or deepen cooperation with an immigration system that has separated families, detained asylum seekers, and spread fear throughout our communities, then that price is simply too high to consider. Public safety can only be built when every resident feels safe participating in public life. There is no doubt to be had that you have a moral obligation as Billings representatives, as the people who are elected to represent me and my family, to turn down this funding. Because of this, I urge every one of you to reject this grant and instead put effort towards making Billings a sanctuary city. Keep ICE terror out of our communities, now and forever in the future. Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Michael Mansfield, and I live in Ward 1. I know I spoke to City Council before, and I actually have provided you all with a slip right here to follow me on. I am a veteran and a member of VFW Post 1634. I have seen firsthand terrorist acts. I have seen the mass graves, the rape camps, people being killed because mainly they're a different religion by terrorists, the same ones that actually are in this country. I do not want to have that happen to my country at all. Many people here that are probably saying against ICE and all that, they have probably never been out of the country, never seen the death and destruction caused by somebody having hate for another person. There's many hate groups that are in this state, in this country, that hate you for being Americans. I served with individuals who were illegal aliens and they got citizenized, or U.S. citizen, by actually serving in the military. And it's actually a dishonor to them to say that an individual can be here illegally when they went through all the trouble of serving our country and proving themselves. That is what Americans are. We have proven ourselves to be here. We have proven ourselves to have the right to have the Constitution of the United States. I do not want America to turn into another third world country. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julie Hippler, and I live at 622 Clark Avenue in Billings. I'm a candidate for Senate District 25. I'm speaking on the issue of the application of the Department of Justice grant program. On the surface, it sounds awesome, getting millions of dollars for public safety at a time when we're experiencing an increase in violent crimes and dangerous overcrowding in our county jail. But like most things that sound awesome, it's generally too good to be true. The first problem I see is before Billings would get any money, the mayor would have to sign a sworn immigration certification and commit in writing to take direction from the Department of Justice. Still doesn't sound too bad, but when you realize that this is a proposal that no Billings resident has read, then it sets off alarm bells, because that seems to violate the public's right to know in the Montana Constitution. And remember, this is the same Department of Justice that has been violating American citizens' constitutional rights since the day the new administration took the oath of office. This agreement also seems to put Billings on the hook to reimburse the Department of Justice of any federal enforcement surge in Billings. I believe that means that if federal agents come to Billings, our local taxpayers would have to pay for their occupation. I still have nightmares from watching the occupation of Minneapolis by federal agents this winter. Minneapolis taxpayers paid millions in extra law enforcement costs, and local businesses lost millions in revenue because of that occupation. The idea that Billings taxpayers would have to pay for an unconstitutional occupation like that with no say in the matter makes those nightmares return. The grant also funds public surveillance tools like license plate readers, real-time crime centers, AI systems, and drones. And this leads us to another violation of our Montana Constitution. Montanans put electronic data into our state constitution search and seizure protections with 82% of the vote. Our legislature restricted these tools with bipartisan support. At the very least, my request to the council is that you make the application public before the mayor signs anything. And if the application shows the above unconstitutional issues, my request is that the city of Billings passes on this grant altogether. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. Gene Jarusi, Jarussi, 1131 North 32nd Street, Ward 1. I I want to address some other aspects of this initiative, which I think are more practical in nature. And if you'll bear with me here, because I want to make sure I stay within my 3 minutes. If you look at page 8, for example, it says, quote, DOJ expects to make awards under this program as cooperative arguments, which allows DOJ to have substantial involvement in carrying out the project. So on page 8. So obviously this money, if given, is not given with no strings attached. In fact, I'd suggest there's steel cables attached. What happens if the city and the DOJ disagree on how to, quote, carry out the project? Who rules? Do we have to give the money back if we can't agree? Page 5, it said the expected award period is 36 months, 3 years. It doesn't say if it's paid monthly, annually, but let's say 36 months as the contract provides. 5 of the goals that are suggested there, 5 of the 8, are the following: hire and retain personnel, initiate mental health and substance abuse services, initiate reentry, transitional support, and recidivism reduction services, initiate victim services, initiate youth crime prevention and intervention services. Great. Well, at the end of 36 months, what do? Have we looked ahead so that we know that at least some of these, if we've started them, we can continue them? If we can't, then you guys get the pleasant task of saying to some of the personnel that we've hired, I guess we can't retain you. These services that we initiated, we can't continue, and so the cards come tumbling down. Money, the answer is money, whatever the question is. 3, awards under this, and this is a quote, awards under this funding opportunity will include a condition, the specific terms of which will govern the award, related to the future reimbursement of the costs associated with federal law enforcement intervention or assistance provided in the event of a surge in violent crime or public disorder. The condition will, generally speaking, require an MCI award recipient to fulfill such future reimbursement obligations incurred in accordance with the terms. Well, what are these specific terms? Who decides if there's a surge in violent crime? 2 seconds. If you get these criminals off the street, which is clearly a goal, where are you going to put them? The jail is full. You might want to wait until we see if there's an expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Ellis Tillery, and I'm here with my group, the Billings Alliance for Immigrant Rights. Lately, all across the United States, there's been an epidemic infecting local governments, one after another. What it's an epidemic of, I'm not sure if I'm qualified to say. At first glance, it could be one of deafness, maybe one of blindness, or possibly even one of spontaneous intellectual disability. Except when you think about it, none of these options really make sense. You see, if city council members and county commissioners were falling deaf, they'd still be able to read the signs. And when going blind, I've heard one can still hear when a crowd yells at you. And as for spontaneous intellectual disability, unfortunately, I can't disprove that it's Tylenol related, but I think it's unlikely. In my humble opinion, though, I think what we are witnessing is much worse: an epidemic of pride. Pride among local elected officials who think that they know better than the people who elected them. Pride that compels them to make decisions for their constituents, not caring if they are wildly unpopular. Pride that places within a person a paternal instinct, making them think that they know best and compelling them to make decisions for the governed without consent. Being people who allegedly care about politics, I don't doubt that you yourselves have witnessed this secondhand in the form of cell phone videos from chambers filled with screaming residents holding signs and making demands that the people they elected serve the people who elected them. Large groups of people looking to a handful of officials who sit behind a table not unlike the one in front of me, while the people staring back ignore them, instead opting to pretend that they have been struck deaf, blind, and intellectually disabled all at once, because they don't think anyone who isn't at their table knows how to do anything, and yet they are paradoxically scared of them. Prideful behavior. What happened to the promise of a government filled with humble public servants made 250 years ago? Why must we live in a country where people who were meant to serve us quietly dissolve boards which were put in place for the public's benefit? Where members of the public are dragged out of middle school auditoriums and arrested for using their First Amendment rights? Where politicians approve data centers, apply for grants, and implement AI surveillance technology, not because it is the will of the people, but because it sounds good on paper and helps them to look a certain way for the future of their political careers. I hope we can keep this chaos that has overtaken many cities and counties across the nation away from here. While I also intend to speak on issue 3 independently, I would like to state my concurrence with the other members of my group in opposing the dissolution of the Police Advisory Board and the application for the Model Cities Initiative grant, partially for these reasons as well as for countless others. I come here to beg you to listen to what the residents of this city who care enough to be here have to say, and also to caution you. Be vigilant not to let this epidemic of pride affect our city. We all know the saying that pride comes before the fall. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kara Chamberlain. I'm at 933 Yale Avenue, Billings, Montana 59102. I'm speaking as an unaffiliated private citizen tonight. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'd like to express my surprise and hurt that the city would be considering applying for the Model Cities Initiative. These grants involve massive influxes of federal agents and seek to turn local police into federal agents as well. They primarily target people of color, and creating sophisticated surveillance systems is one of the program's core purposes. Our city does have problems, but lack of license plate readers, AI systems, and surveillance drones is not one of them. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Hello, my name is Mark Stewart. Oops, sorry. My name is Mark Stewart. I live at 614 Burlington Ave, 59101. Hello, City Council, Mayor, and staff. I appreciate your service and civic duty. Thank you. I'm here to urge this council to not support the application for the Department of Justice's Fiscal Year 2026 Model Cities Initiative Grant. There have been some wonderful articulations of why not to support that. I'm not going to read everything I've got because that would just be repetitive, and I don't want to take too much of your time around that. But there is something I'd like to point out, and that is that the MCI, the Model Cities Initiative, is not a traditional block grant, but a cooperative agreement. It holds Billings financially liable for the outcome. MCI creates a pay-to-play dynamic where we must adopt an external political agenda to get the resources that should be supporting a specific local safety, mental health needs. I appreciate this common critique that I found of MCI. I'll share with you. The MCI process effectively forces a city to pay for the privilege of being managed by the federal government, turning local agency into a service provider for federal policy implementation rather than the recipient of federal assistance. Thank you for the opportunity to speak out. Thank you again for your service.
My name is Brooke Bigler. I'm a part of Billings Alliance for Immigrant Rights. We are here to demand a sanctuary city and a shutdown of the Model Cities Initiative. We want a city for everyone who wants to work for the American dream. America is a country that has tremendous wins and potential. Excluding people from around the world who are looking for better for themselves and their families is not going to benefit us. I am Native American. I am native to this land. Unlike some of you, all my ancestors are from here, but I don't criticize my white peers and their ancestors for coming here in a boat with no papers. Crossing the border shouldn't make it okay to be shot in broad daylight by the government. What should be criticized is there are two parties in our government we have that have failed our neighbors try to live a better life. These people being killed are family men that have been working here for years and no criminal history and still was never giving, We say we kill for our children, but when parents cross the border to escape their country in hopes for better, they're criticized and dehumanized. What would Jesus do? Not this. He loved his neighbors. He wouldn't be wearing a mask and putting people in vans. He wouldn't be trying to silence the people standing up for the ones being targeted and oppressed. Do you think when you see him, he will have nice things to say to you? What did you stand for in 2024 to 2028? With this job, what impact are you making? Did you stand for hate and tearing families apart? Did you stay silent, or did you do whatever you can to assure safety for everyone? You can ignore us in our demands, but you cannot avoid God in the end. And one more thing. A majority of Billings citizens want a police advisory board, a citizen police advisory board, but 6 of you went against the majority and voted to dissolve it. You guys have an important job, and I don't see anything great coming from you. We are at a time where a lot of us don't trust the government and our representatives. The Citizen Police Advisory Board was here to give citizens a voice and a bridge of communication between the people and law enforcement. Dissolving the boards leads to less trust and more corruption. I'm going to name off the members who voted against the citizens' wishes. You are here to work for City of Billings, yet you voted against us. Roy Neese, shame. Bill Kennedy, shame. Scott Aspenleader, shame.
That's
Mike
enough.
Boyett, shame. Dennis Pittman, shame. Tony O'Donnell, shame. Thank you.
Folks, we had an agreement that you wouldn't do things like this. Okay? Please live up to that. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Karen Jerusi. I live at 1131 North 32nd Street in Billings. And thank you, Mayor Nelson and City Council members, for having us here. The Model Cities Initiative Grant application sounds like an opportunity for federal government to impose policy and exercise control over our city, in the guise of temporary funding with entry-level fascist strings attached. Namely, requiring compliance with federal data sharing statutes to be used by federal immigration forces that have repeatedly arrested and detained or disappeared persons who are neither undocumented nor criminal. Look at what happened in Freud, Montana, and in other places in Montana. In other cities, they have killed American citizens for reasons that have turned out to be lies. Do we really need this in Billings? Encouraging use of artificial intelligence system to process data obtained using drones and license plate readers like flock cameras that record much more than license plate numbers, among other things, to conduct surveillance on our own community members. Is this how we really want to live? Requiring us to pay the full cost of any surge in federal troops to our city, whether we want it or not. We have a son who lives in Washington, D.C., in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. Every time we visit them with our 6-year-old and 3-year-old grandkids, there are armed National Guard troops with semi-automatic weapons, multiple sets of them, patrolling this peaceful neighborhood park for no reason at all and against the wishes of the residents. Do we want to lay the groundwork to have to pay for armed guards at Pioneer Park? I don't think so. Sharing substantial control of law enforcement programs to the feds, which, if the terms of this grant are any indication, might create a slippery slope leading to a surveillance police state before we even realize it. And in return, what do we get? 3 years of funding, and then we're stuck with all the costs, but have lost our own local autonomy and ability to decide how we, in Billings, Montana, want to live our lives and enforce our laws. Please just say no to this blatant attempt by our own federal government to bribe us into the future which likely violates the Constitution rights we hold dear. We do not have to adopt this Orwellian viewpoint of life. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Bernie Quetchenbeck. I live at 933 Yale Avenue in Billings, Montana, 59102. I'm here also to talk about the Model Cities initiative, and I've heard quite a bit already that's significant. I'm just going to add a small thing. I've lived here in Billings for 20 years. I enjoy coming downtown. I enjoy going to events. I like the atmosphere of the city. I would be much less enthusiastic and likely to do so, to come downtown, to go to a park, if I knew I was going to be subjected to intensive Soviet-style surveillance that will be shared with a federal government that's already proved itself untrustworthy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Good Monday afternoon. Paul Clark, Mr. Mayor, Council Member, Administration, we the people. I come up with about 3 different ideas before I even walked up to the podium here. But let's remember there are 300 million, give or take, natural, legal, United States of America citizens. And each year we swear in approximately 800,000 people that had come through the system legally, waited their turn, paid their administration fees. So what gives the right to allow over 20 million illegal aliens from over 100 countries to skip the process? Not sure why, but here we are. Now, at the border, it's not just Latin America passports that are coming across. They're the Chi-Coms, they're the North Koreans, they're Asian, they're black market from Ireland, who knows? But they're coming across. And when they get to the border, they throw their border in the air because it's fake, it's worthless, and they walked on through. That happened between 3 or 4 presidential administrations. They all talk good, nobody did nothing till this guy got here, 47. Okay, enough on that. South Park, beautiful. Do I want armed guards at the park? Maybe you haven't been to the park lately, but they're everywhere, okay? Do I feel safer that they're there? Of course I would. A reason? I live in a glass house. I have nothing to fear. If I'm illegal, I would not be in a park where I knew all the surveillance was at. Where would I be? I think I'd be at the immigration office trying to get my passport and legal matters and fair. You have 10, 15 years, then you come in here and you get caught. Oh, I'm sorry. What about my family? Oh, I'm sorry. Where were you for 10, 15 years not trying to get to this system? Back to South Park. The swim pool. You guys, the old pool, it's bad. So if this process that we're going to talk about on these work sessions is one about the South Park, both my council members know where I stand. I love the pool. Wilson Park lease. That was going to be the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter's land that we were going to give them on some toxic fuel, toxic ground south of the sugar factory. That water is bad. That land is bad. I'm glad that that fell through. Not glad that we had the incinerator incident on Monad. And this justice model system, I don't know what it's about, but well, hopefully I'll get another chance to come up here and talk when it's that time. Anyway, God bless you all. God bless America.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Marcus Fry. I live in Ward 1, and I also work in Ward 1 as the assistant pastor of Billings First Congregational Church. I'm speaking tonight in opposition to the council pursuing the Model Cities Initiative grants. I can understand that there are a lot of things that are written in this grant that seem like this money could be used for really good things that the Billings city needs. However, there are also a lot of things in here that are very, very bad for our city. The Department of Justice uses the cities of Memphis and Washington, D.C. as examples for what they hope to accomplish with this initiative, and they claim that the large-scale federal intervention and cooperation there reduced crime and restored law and order. However, the nonpartisan Council of Criminal Justice found that violent crimes fell across roughly 40 of the largest American cities in 2025. Homicides were down 21% in a single year and down 44% from their 2021 peak. That decline started back in 2022, and it happened in cities where there were no federal surges or large-scale cooperation at all. Memphis was already trending down before the task force arrived. So by applying for this grant, we would be buying into an expensive, militarized model to get the exact same result that the whole country was already getting without the experience of a federal surge. I also have the concern about the reimbursement clause. Buried in the condition is an open-ended promise to pay the DOJ back for any future surge in Billings, an amount that nobody in this room would be able to name. I am not in favor of the city and giving the federal government a blank check for my tax dollars in exchange for a surge of federal law enforcement where there's no evidence of that surge actually benefiting public safety. This grant also requires us to certify cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. Peer-reviewed studies of the Secure Communities program found that when local police became a pipeline to immigration enforcement, Hispanic residents reported crime about 30% less often, and victimization went up. When people are afraid to call 911 because they or their loved ones may be harassed and turned into immigration authorities, people are less safe. The National Policing Institute published a report in 2009 stating that immigrant witnesses of crime, many of whom already bring with them fear and mistrust of police due to experiences with authorities in their own country, are less likely to report crime and cooperate as witnesses. The requirements of this grant make our communities less safe. The Hebrew Bible and the New Testament contain a multitude of passages asking that a city be known for how it treats the strangers and the vulnerable among us. By trading our neighbors' trust and our own oversight for federal money and federal cameras is a bad bargain, practically and morally. I'd ask this council to reject any action that would further entertain an application for the Model Cities Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jennifer Strong, Ward 3. Thank you for your time and for your service. I'm not here because I'm necessarily in favor of Model Cities, the Model Cities Initiative, but I am here because I'm thankful for our law enforcement officers and the protection they provide for my family, my rights as an American citizen, and the protection of my hard-earned property. I am not in favor of flock cameras or data centers or the unconstitutional search and seizure of American citizens. I'm also not here as a representative of Prison Fellowship. However, I am someone who has volunteered with them in our local women's prison for several years now. I've lost count of the number of adjudicated former murderers, drug dealers, and violent criminals who I now count as my dear friends. They are friends who have found lasting hope and peace in Jesus Christ only through their incarceration, which took them out of their hopeless situations. I wish that incarceration was not necessary, but for some people, it is the only way to protect them from themselves, to protect them and others from themselves. This is not possible apart from law enforcement. I am here to call out the individuals who continue to come before this council, representing organizations like the FRSO, the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, a revolutionary communist organization. Communists aren't concerned with safety and security. The goal of someone representing the FRSO, a violently revolutionary communist organization, is not simply to get rid of ICE or to help the less fortunate. It is to get rid of all law enforcement so they can overthrow the government. Communists don't care about violence. They want to be the ones committing it without the oversight of law enforcement. They care about seizing the means of production, that is, private property. The law enforcement like ICE, city police, county sheriff, state police, stand directly between them and their goal. They are interested in the idea that the ends justify the means. There are certainly average citizens who are reasonably concerned, but a lot of what is going on here is nothing but communist propaganda that is being masqueraded as loving and caring organizations. They are anything but that. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's folks that haven't spoken yet, you could stage right up there in the first row and wait your turn so that we can spend more time listening to you and less time watching you walk up.
Hi, y'all. Kieran Fury, 703 North 32nd Street, Ward 1. I will keep things blissfully short, and if you haven't guessed based off current trends, I am here for agenda item number 3. I think everyone here has said most of what I wanted to say, especially one of my previous commenters with the phrase entry-level fascist strings. But I just want to make it very clear. I think all of you have the capacity to see a grant application that lists its 8 goals. If it takes 6 of those 8 goals to finally get to the section that actually addresses mental health services and crime reduction, perhaps the money isn't going to go towards mental health services and crime reduction. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor, City Council. Name is Nathan Sonnenschein, live on 5th Avenue West on the edge of Ward 1, the beating heart of Billings. So I'm speaking tonight about the Model Cities Initiative, which I understand is just a discussion item tonight. So, I mean, I know a lot of this has already been said, but this grant has the potential to be transformative. It's a lot of money that when I'm reading that application, talking about mental health and substance use services, reentry and recidivism reduction programming, and victim services, I know those are things that the city needs, and they're all priorities for this council. But as has been stated, it's a very odd grant. So especially the first thing that really drew my eye was the condition related to the future reimbursement of the costs associated with federal law enforcement intervention or assistance provided in the event of a surge in violent crime or public disorder. So given that condition's in the grant at all, and how much of the RFP is dedicated to touting the claimed effectiveness of the surges, like most of the first page that we've seen in other cities, I think the city of Billings would need to consider this future cost reimbursement as very likely if this grant were applied for and awarded. So I know many federal grants require local matches, but this unquantified future financial obligation seems kind of wild. Despite what some people say, we know the city isn't rolling in money. I watched all the budget sessions recently, and I know the city is navigating multiple layers of constraints to efficiently fund the functions of local government. So if the city was responsible for bankrolling a surge, where would that money come from? Would the city need to cut services like parks, libraries, fire, or even local safety, which is where a lot of the city's budget is at? So in contrast, federal agencies receive money through federal appropriation from Congress, which is able to draw debt, as they have. So why should local governments be on the hook? And why should the city be required to bankroll federal activities over which council has no say, despite the spending of local tax monies? So then there's the question of whether we even need a surge, whatever that might look like. Violent crime rates in Billings, as in many other cities, have fallen for the past few years, which is awesome. And the city has invested heavily in public safety. Meanwhile, we'd be making national news, creating a perception that this is a violent city. And I fear that could have impacts on business investment, tourism dollars, and people deciding whether to move here, including people like qualified medical professionals, which we really need here. So one final observation is that the grant RFP is very short relative to something awarding this much money, and the DOJ has yet to publish substantive information about timelines, interagency agreements, implementation structures. The devil's in the details. I'm sure many of you have had just as many questions as I do, so I look forward to your discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Elizabeth Halverson. I live on Sam Snead Trail. You're looking at the Model Cities Initiative and whether Billings should apply for the funding even. I know that your staff needs to bring you these kinds of opportunities. More funding is attractive, even seductive. Please take a close look. One of my real concerns looking through this, I share a lot of the concerns already voiced, but for sure, you know, the fiscal effects are kind of alarming. Open-ended is the statement that the federal government gives this, and it is very open-ended, even completely unknown. That is a tough one for a municipality to think about trying to plan for. We have a lot of other needs, including expanding our jail. First of all, in this process, we lose control right from the start. If the federal government wants to focus on immigration, that is what is going to happen with this money in our town. We might be thinking of all the good that could happen with greater funding for mental health and addiction intervention and treatment, those kinds of things. But the project planning, the focus, the priorities are all decided by the federal government in this process. That is what has been done elsewhere, regardless of what the DOJ said to get their foot in the door. So we would be left to try to continue to fund all of the real priorities in our community. They would remain for us to handle without any additional federal dollars. We don't control implementation either. That has not even been fleshed out in the request. Our law enforcement would likely be sidelined or would have to follow and obey the federal government. This is a significant federalization and takeover of local law enforcement, which is accountable to the city and the taxpayers. The federal government will have zero accountability from what I can tell. They are the federal grant funding mechanism. It looks like we could be on the hook to pay for civil claims that arise from their patrols and their surge. Finally, the cost is truly unknown. What we can say for sure is there is no upper limit to what the cost of a federal surge in Billings would look like. There should be no benefit of the doubt that goes to the federal government here. They have exploited every angle to take over towns and cities, and this angle is a fiscal black hole. Please step away from this particular federal initiative. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Don't we already have an issue with the feds not paying
Sir, could
what
you
they owe?
start with your name and where you live?
My name's Justin King. I live in Billings. We already have an issue with the feds not paying the debts that they owe us. And now we're going to give them a blank check. It just don't make sense.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close this public comment period of today's meeting, and we'll move on to Mr. Wolchner and the South Park Pool presentation.
Is this on now? There we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm really excited to bring forth the South Park Pool project. This project has been spoken about in different guises for a while. And I'm trying to share my screen here. There we go. So this project has been spoken about in different guises since 2021, maybe a little before that, with myriad of groups, interest groups, elected officials administration, park administration, and the list goes on and on. I think one area of consensus is that we have all seen the importance of addressing this, right? Over the years, and I've only been at the helm for the last 18 months or so, but over the years, we've seen this department come up with different stopgap measures to keep that pool functioning. Not one of these measures was ever intended to be a long-term solution. I give it great kudos to our parks or our recreation superintendent, Corey Thompson, with me today, of his ingenuity in keeping that pool operating. But again, we're getting to a point where we're running out of rabbits to pull out of hats. So really coming before you tonight, I have 3 different questions that I want to pose that would help this conversation to move forward. We do know that there has been $10 million allocated from the TIF to be addressed to this, another $400,000 from the general fund. There's been $171,488 through grant monies that we have recently received, for a total of $10,571,488 real dollars. We do have an additional $350,000 out in a grant right now through the Department of Commerce at the state level for a historic preservation grant. So if we include that monies, we're looking at $10,921,488. That's a start. What I needed to have an understanding of is, what is our budget? What do we want to build there? What do we want to provide in that space going forward? Is it 11 million? Is that a hard 11 million? And I'm rounding up, obviously, because point number 3 tonight is the capital campaign or sponsorship aspect. If we want to have a very concerted effort for a sponsorship, up to what level? Do we want to do a capital campaign up to 13 million, up to 15 million? Do we want to try to shoot the moon and go 20 million? This is the direction I need from all of you tonight to establish, first and foremost, a budgetary number. Second is the construction methodology, and we've talked about the design bid build process and or construction manager at risk. The preference is to go with a construction manager at risk, but I would like you to speak to that. Keep in mind that this facility and the new courts complex were both CMAR builds. So with that, Mr. Mayor and Council, you'll kind of see on the picture here, one aspect of tonight is also footprint of the new pool. In that picture, you will see that there is the, where the label is the tennis courts, basketball courts area. That area is in need of great repair because one thing we want to think about is, as we do this construction build out, is we want to reduce any type of loss of swim season at this park as well. And so my opinion would be that the new footprint would be where those courts, tennis courts and basketball courts are. We do want to be very mindful of already using the mechanicals that are to that spray ground there where the other label is. Because if we do not incorporate that, I'm going to guesstimate that that's about another $1 million that we would need to procure in order to have new mechanicals to that spray area. So with all of that information that I posed to all of you, this is a project that I will say is very similar to the courts complex. We have an opportunity here to have a lot of fun and bring a lot of joy to our residents and our citizens with a new pool at South Park.
Okay, I guess we're going to start with some questions here. Mr. Kennedy's first in line, then Mr. Neese.
Gavin, there's a couple of things. I would like to see the budget that we work with is at 10.9 million. I think with this project, I agree with you. The construction management at risk is where we go. But what we also do is look at alternatives. If there's alternatives, we can look at capital campaign, naming rights, all of that to add on to the project. But the initial project has to be built. I've heard from people on the city council that we've been looking for the money for years. I've been here for 2 years. We expanded the TIF district and we are doing the borrowing on it. Not really that big of heavy lift of going forward, but the folks on the south side have been waiting over 8 years for this to get done. So it would be nice to, and I'm glad you were listening when I was talking to you about the basketball courts or tennis courts or whatever they are right there. We can't lose any time, but if you go by South Park Pool, it's packed every day. When we served at the first day of the season, hot dogs and had everything with the South Park Task Force, it's packed every day. We were there on Saturday for the carnival. It was packed. And I wish the splash park would have been open. I see you had some problems there. But if you go with the 10.9 as your starting point, get it going, construction management at risk, and then I think we'd all be willing to go in and help with the capital campaign and naming rights. Thank you.
Mr. Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. Gavin, a couple of questions for you. As I'm looking at this map you've got here, what you're saying is you want to build the pool where the courts are, correct? And I drove by there today. They're pretty bad shape. And so I don't disagree they need to be replaced. So is your plan then to build the courts where the pool is? And
No. So Mayor and Council, what we would do is probably make that into a green space. Just off the picture here are another set of basketball courts that have been refinished and brought up very nice courts within the last year.
Okay, so that would be abandoned. I think it's a softball field kind of just south of where the pool is now. Is that correct? Is that softball field used quite a bit?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, Councilmember Neese, correct. It is very active and activated throughout the summer.
Okay. And then right there to the right, you got the bandstand, the little octagon shape.
The gazebo, yep.
Yeah, the gazebo there. So is that, I guess, as Councilmember Kenny said, the pool is full all summer long, lots of noise. When it's moved into that much closer to the stand there, is that going to disrupt the type of activities that could be held at that location because of all the additional noise? Because pools are very noisy.
So Mayor and Council, Councilmember Neese, I would be speculating. Of course, there's going to be a marginal risk of interruption and or noise with a new footprint. But because it's a pretty good distance away when you look at it in real area,
okay.
Not to mention the large trees would stay. Shade is one of those components that we would want to bring into the new pool as well.
Okay. And then you mentioned the South Park splash pad. Do you know how old that pad is?
Mayor and Council, I'm going to defer to my superintendent.
Councilmember Neese, I believe it's about 8 years old. The equipment is down in the basement of the old pool, so that would be something we would have to consider and discuss throughout this project.
Okay, so you'd just be replumbing, trenching it over to there, kind of replacing the lines. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a decent plan. I mean, once you start getting the design and see if it'll fit, I guess I agree with what Councilmember Kennedy said about you got your base of 10.9. If you fundraise, then yeah, I think we need to have the alternatives. If it's 16 million is what they say with all the bells and whistles, great. But I think what we need to see is if this bell or whistle is going to be at 2 million, what are we going to get? And so we have it broken down, especially for fundraising, get the goal of 2 million more, then we're going to have, I don't know, whatever it may be, a lazy river. And so those are the kind of things I think that we are going to need to see so that we have a good idea of what the plan is in the end and how people could fundraise towards it.
So Mayor and Council, just for clarity purposes, go with 10.9, and should we then do about alternatives at $2 million? So 10.9, 12.9, 14.9, just to kind of see what those alternatives may look like.
Well, before we get into that, let's make sure everybody has a chance to weigh in, and then we'll come to sort of a mixed up consensus. So, anything else, Mr. Neese?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm one who would go up on the budget. I don't think that's a surprise. I'm so excited. We're finally moving forward with this. I'll just click through your things that you wanted confirmation on. And then to the mayor's point, I think the budget is probably one we need to just take a vote on of if we want to increase what we're asking for from the TIF district, because they need to know that. I am of the opinion that we should shoot for 15, 16 million with a combo of the TIF funding and the fundraising. I think that's going to get us a really great facility over there. I don't want to do something that we're like, it's just so-so, and then we never ever get to the next phase of it, because I think that's kind of what would happen. And I think our community would come in and would support it if there was a very clear vision. But to the points that have been made, I do think we've got to be very clear about what that 10.9 can buy and then what the next chunk is. So you'd said, I think, Roy, throughout 2 million, 3 million, I don't know what that is of what that segment is where it would trigger, okay, now we can do this to water slide. I don't know what that is. But I think we've got to be clear about what the 10.9 can buy and then whatever the next chunk is to get up to that 15, 16 million, because I think that's what we're going to have to really be asking our community for. Totally fine with construction manager at risk. You guys did a great job with City Hall. Well, not you, your team, but the City Hall team did a great job. Good job, Jessica and Kevin. And you guys did a great job at the ARC. So I think that's working really well for the city and it's saving the taxpayers money. And I'm ready to go full steam ahead on a capital campaign. I think you start that immediately. So those are my comments, and then I think we need to come back to a vote on whether or not we increase the TIF funding.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lindley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, great work on this so far, for sure. I'm also, although I have not been waiting as long as Councilmember Shaw, I think this is very exciting. The thing I've mentioned many times is that I can envision having a facility similar to, at least in terms of the amenities, like a Rose Park, but on the south side. The designs I think that you've got here in the document generally accomplish that. I mean, I would say I think option one is a little short, like of that. I think option one would be a little sad, candidly. 2 and 3 look good. I know they're both above the budget, but yeah, I feel like the idea of seeing, once you know your budget, let's see what we can do with that budget, and then what can be the next step, and the next step I think is a good idea. And I mean, obviously the other thing that I think goes without saying, I would imagine every month that goes by that we just don't start working on this, those costs are just going to continue to go up. So yeah, I'd love to see this as fast as we can. I also, just as a note, I think the construction manager at risk is a great option. So I'm fully supporting that.
Okay, great. Councilmember Geary.
Thank you. Excuse me. If I recall correctly, previously conversations dabbled in doing this project incrementally, just start with the basic and then maybe work toward the shelter space and showers and all of that. And I would agree with Councilmember Shaw that if we don't go full steam ahead on this now, that incremental idea is just going to get watered down over time. So my idea is full steam ahead, get all the bells and whistles, look immediately at a capital campaign to start fundraising to help us meet these goals. But I would say 15, 16 million would be a good goal.
Thank you, Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would stay with the original 10.9 million. I'm okay with CMAR. Looking at this, if we build it properly, we can do it in phases. Oasis did it. We've done it at Rose Park to where we've added on as we've had the ability to do that. I think we can dream big if in our original plan, it facilitates these expansions as we continue on. And we've seen examples of how that works. And we see companies throughout our community that will stand up and sponsor a slide or whatever that surfing thing is at the Oasis. That would probably kill me.
The wave pool?
They actually get on boards, surfboards, and do stuff, and they have the lazy river, and there's a lot of other amenities that these parks can do. So I think I would look at the big picture, but look at it maybe in some phases, depending on funding. And I think as you build it, it will come. And maybe even talk to the people out at the Better Billings Foundation and how they phased it with the appropriate pumps at the beginning. So that was all in place. And then what it cost to continue adding things. The other thing is the more you add, the more it costs in operations and maintenance and replacement that we would have to put into the budget as well. So it's not just capital and building it, but then maintaining and operating it.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Mr. Kennedy's up again.
Gavin, how many more years can you get out of the pool right now? The one that's there.
Mayor and council, my crystal ball is not operable.
Yeah.
But I would say this, in all seriousness, we're getting close to having to, for safety reasons, no longer operate that facility.
Right.
I would say at the outset, 2 years.
And last year, we shut down early because we didn't have enough people. So we shut down 3 weeks before school started. And there was a lot of kids that didn't have swim time. When you folks look at shooting for the moon and going for all the bells and whistles, you're going to delay or have no park or no pool there until the money is raised to do it. I have a real problem with that. And that's why I say you start at the 10.9. You've been sitting here for 8 years and nothing has gone on. And now you want to delay it. And I have a problem with that. I would rather go with the money we have in hand and then put different phases on so we can get this construction started this next year. I just think that going out and saying that you're going to fundraise and get all this money, I've seen projects delayed 4, 5, 6 years, and it doesn't make any sense. And most of you should go over to the pool during the summer. And it was packed this weekend down there. And, look at it. But really, what it is I don't want to see a delay because I have a lot of kids from our organization go over there all the time. And we're down there all the time looking at it, and I just don't think it can be delayed any longer. So if you want to do phases, but let's get in the ground and start building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Councilmember O'Donnell.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, thank you. I agree quite a bit with points just raised by Councilmember Kennedy in that it seems to me if we do the project all at one time, wait until we have all the money to do option 3, that it's going to delay the pool construction. Because if we string that out, then the developer is going to have additional costs because he's not being able to do everything all at one time. So I've heard estimates that it would take about 5 years. And Councilmember Kennedy has been in the fundraising business for many, many years. I think he knows what he's talking about in terms of the pace that it would take to reach that goal. And I agree with Gavin's assessment that based upon the maintenance history of that pool, that it's not going to last any more than 2 years, which would mean that before the money is raised to do option 3, there'd be no pool at all. And I think that's unacceptable. I vote for the option 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, so let's take it. We have 3 issues to talk about, and then we'll get a consensus on each one of them. But before we do that, Mr. Boyette has informed me that there's public comment regarding this, so I should have known that. We'll open it up to public comment regarding the South Park pool. Thank you, Mr. Boyette.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Boyette. Paul Clark, Mr. Mayor, Council Member, Administration. $11 million. And we're there. Take it. It's like you don't ask for more. They're going to give you 11 million. Take it. Okay? We can worry about a pool that floats down the river. Whatever happened to the Olympic-sized pool that we had back in the 70s and 80s? That's half the size of what it was. And what's an $11 million pool going to look like? Let's see some. You guys probably have some pictures of it, but as far as coming out to the task force so we can see them would be excellent. Yes, let's take it. 11 million. Pool. I mean, I'll even do the Tarzan jump if you want me to get this kicked off, but thumbs up, you guys.
Hi, Katie Harrison. I live on the south side, and I haven't been following this topic very closely, but as a south side resident and living close to the pool, I just want to express my excitement for any improvements that we can look into for the south side. I see the pool, especially with all these hot days, like overflowing with kids. I mean, it's like really packed. So any kind of investment like this that we can do, I feel like that's the model city initiative that I want to see our city behind and investing our money and our time and these conversations in. I think it's well known that giving safe, beautiful, uplifted outlets for kids especially, but for families, places that are safe, that is crime reduction, right? So it's like we get more bang for our buck. Anyways, I just say, yes, go for it. Thank you.
Any other comment about the South Park pool? Okay, come on back, gentlemen. We're going to close the public comment period regarding South Park pool. And I guess we'll start taking some comments and then we'll get to consensus. So, Mr. Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question for you, Gavin, because a couple of people talked about option 1, 2, and 3. We're talking about the appendix, I believe, when they're referencing those options, those concepts. But that's actually not what we're approving tonight because there's a whole design has to become, so it may not be. So just want to make sure the council understands we're not actually approving option 1, 2, or 3. It's more budgetary of what can 10.9 build, and that's what we're going to look at, or 16 million, and then what other, maybe some or 10.9 plus some alternatives to get to the 16.
Mayor and Councilmember Neese, you are absolutely correct. This the feasibility study is not a design. Option 1, 2, and 3. There has not actually been a design yet undertaken for this space.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. First issue to decide tonight, confirm the final project budget. And I think what I heard is that the council is comfortable getting started at 10.9. And if more money comes in during this project, it can be used to add on. Is that what I'm hearing? Is there consensus to that? Alternatives? Mr. O'Donnell, I don't see you nodding or shaking your head. That's a thumbs up. Okay.
Mayor.
So are we clear on that one? Yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, it's not, if let's say they get $100,000 more in, it doesn't mean that you can add a lazy river to it because it's probably going to be $1 million or $2 million to get it. So I think it's the design phase of having alternatives so that we know when that $100,000 comes in, what can they do? Maybe they can do a hot dog stand, right?
For 100,000? Maybe.
Yeah, concessions. So those are, but I think that's where more the line with, I was thinking, so we make sure we did Castle Rock Park that way in a sense where we had, when we do a park, we designed it, but you had all the master plan. well, we only did this portion, but now we know what we need to do here. If we want to fundraise, we can fundraise for that
Right.
portion.
Okay, I like that. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you. Yes, I want to just clarify from you guys. You will go forward and start this design conversation with, we know for sure we've got 10.9 million. We would like to get, or some of us would like to get to a goal of more because it means more amenities for our kids and for the community. And I think it's better overall in the long run for the city. But certainly the goal isn't, we can't have the goal be to wait on that additional increment of funding because that wouldn't make any sense in terms of the timeline of the project and the pool. So as you go out for the design, how do you make it really clear to people who are going to come back with an RFP that this is what we know we have? And then we've got to be able to communicate to the community whatever that next increment is. And that's what I don't know now. And I don't know if you know that either, but that 2, 3, 4 million, and do we have to get to the full amount of that to trigger whatever it is? Or is it, to Roy's point, at $500,000 here could do X, Y, Z. So those are kind of my questions that I have for you to kick back in terms of the RFP process, but also related to the capital campaign of being able to make that really clear to the community that what their investment would buy in addition to what the public's already in for.
So Mayor and Council, Councilwoman, I wholeheartedly agree. Here's how I would envision this. Whereas at the courts complex, sponsorship, naming rights came in kind of at the caboose. We're bringing that more toward the first third. So we would use the 10.9 as the base, and that is what I would ask the design it at 10.9. Then if we say, and I'm absolutely making this up right now, if we have X, Y, and Z that total $3 million in sponsorship and naming rights, give me an alternative for $1.5 million, and then at the $3 million, so that there will be alternatives once those monies have come in, then we would do that.
All right. Mr. Kennedy?
By the 10.9, we're not holding up anything, and we're not saying you can't have the bells and whistles. We're just saying we'll add them as the money comes in.
Correct.
Thank
you. Okay. So, Ms. Aguirre?
Yes, so if we were, excuse me, starting at that 10.9 and we're able to get all the basics in with that, would you continue a capital campaign to continue adding to the facility?
So Council, Mayor and Council, Councilwoman Aguirre, yes. I would look at it the same way. Let's just say, and again, I'm making this up, we had a $12 million goal. We hit that goal, but we still have an outstanding opportunities of X, Y, and Z for naming rights. We would do the same thing as we did with the courts complex, and we would use those naming rights then to offset operations in perpetuity.
All right, so I think we're good on confirming the final project budget. If you don't mind, it makes logical sense then to go to authorize development of a capital campaign and naming rights strategy. So we'll think about that next. Mr. Neese, who's always first.
Not always first. I think when we did the ARC, the team met and talked about this, and so I'm just going to bring some of that to kind of what we discussed is that there's, and I think it's different over time. You can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but a certain percentage of that went into operations, and a certain percentage went into reserve because this building is going to be needing repair and replacements and down the future, and some way that has to get funded. And so I think when we talk about maybe mirroring what the ARC has done, it would be a good way to when we look at naming rights, to kind of mirror what we've done there. A portion can go to operation, a portion has to go into the reserves to fund reserves.
Like a good
so
idea.
I'm agreeable with doing that as long as we're kind of following what we did with the ARC and adjust it as we need as time goes on.
All right. Ms. Shaw, did I see your hands up? Full steam ahead. So you looking for consensus here, authorizing the capital campaign and naming rights strategy. Mr. O'Donnell, are you a thumbs up or a thumbs? Mr. O'Donnell's a thumbs up. So there we go. Finally, approve the CMAR. Now we've had some discussion about that. Anybody else want to add to it? Are there thumbs up to the CMAR, construction manager at risk? Okay, we're good, Mr. O'Donnell. You want to add your thumb in there? There's a thumbs up. Okay. We're good, gentlemen. I think we
Mayor.
covered all three.
Mayor, just to be clear, we're not approving anything tonight.
No, we're giving them
Direction.
direction to
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Just want to make sure the public's aware we did not
Yes,
approve
we have
anything.
not agreed to anything except go forth and make your plans. Mr. Kennedy, was there anything else? All right. Item number 2, Wilson Park lease. Yeah, Mr. Gavin, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We usually take a break at 7. It's 6:51, so let's take a quick recess for about 10 minutes.
La, 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 la.
Everybody ready? Mr. O'Donnell, you there? All right, folks, the recess is over. We're back in order. And we're going to now talk about the Wilson Park lease proposal.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've been in conversation with School District 2 about their intention of wanting to lease Wilson Park for a new bus barn facility. What I'm bringing forth to you is just for consideration. Obviously, there are details that we can look at and discuss. Unfortunately, ST2 does not have a representative this evening, so any questions I'll be happy to share with them tomorrow. As was alluded to earlier, once Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter no longer was interested in the Wilson Park area, SD2 did reach out to me. Have been in conversations with them about the last, let's say, 90 days or so of their interest in utilizing that space for a bus barn facility. What is presented to you this evening is asking for a 50-year lease on this space that they would then be able to build their facility. Presented before you, it would be an annual lease of $18,000 with a 2% escalator for 50 years. Currently, Public Works does store snow, mostly from the downtown area, in Wilson Park. SD2 has agreed that they would provide alternative storage locations for snow. Additionally, PRPL, through our property disposition committee, we identified Career Center Park as an area that was earmarked for donation to SD2. We would also put that into the mix here as part of the overall package. Currently, this piece of land generates $0 a year for the department. Under this 50-year term, it would generate just north of $1.5 million. So one of the reasons why I'm bringing this, and again, this is the details are just that. They're just details. They're not agreed upon necessarily, as all of you would need to weigh in on this. Per state statute, SD2 can only go into land leases longer than 14 years by vote of the public. So we're trying to parallel me bringing this information to all of you first, while they have worked on their back end with their board to discuss this and then to prepare for ballot language in November. The benefits, I guess, one, we generate a passive revenue with a land lease, obviously. SD2 gets to use this space, but preserve other space for their future capital projects. Then, no cost snow storage alternatives for Public Works in this agreement as well. This is part of, this was not part of the original 11 when it came to the property disposition list. I do think that's noteworthy. Right now, we are currently undergoing the process to remove the LWCF designation of the entirety of the property. It has been recently appraised. The next steps would be a state level review and then the National Park Service review. It would take about 8 months further for have that designation fully lifted from that space. That designation has been placed out at the new reservoir area. Appraisal of the Wilson Park is about $875,000.
Thank you, sir. Let's see, we have 3 lined up for questions right now. Mr. Boyette first, Mr. Kennedy, then Mr. Lindley, and now I'm going to look to my left and see Mr. Neese. So go ahead, Mr. Boyette.
I was just looking at the present value, $18,000 a year for 50 years. You're saying it's going to generate 1.5 million. That's probably not even worth half of that by the end of the time. We're actually losing money. $875,000 present value is better than $1.5 million in 50 years. So I think we're losing money if we do a lease for, in my mind, a chump change of 18,000. I think the 875 would be a better buy, whether they want to do that or not. but I'd rather go with present value money than 50 years worth of decreasing a value of money.
Mr. Kennedy?
You know, it's our money. If it's the school district is paying or we're paying or whatever, let's just sell the property, let them put the bus barn up, get the 875 so you can add it to the park's budget. And then you can't even run a splash park on 18,000 per year. So we might as well just get the money, give them the property, and then they'd save a few bucks and we wouldn't have the hassle with it.
Mr. Lindley?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, first of all, I was going to say in general, I like the concept of this, but I did have a question about the lease term because you mentioned the 14-year maximum. If that's the case, why would we be thinking about a 50 and wouldn't maybe do like a 10-year that could be renewed?
Mayor and Council, Councilmember Lindley. So I brought that same question to SD2. It is of their legal team's opinion that if we were to do a 14-year lease with 2 extensions, that is kind of skirting the state statute. So let's just say the voters do not agree to a 50-year lease, or you don't agree and you put it out at a 30-year. It would still have to go to the voters. Now, if the voters did not approve this, I don't know where that conversation goes with SD2, but we'd have to explore that.
Quick follow-up.
Go ahead.
Do you have, if this didn't work out, I think I understand that the alternative would be that, and it's mentioned here on the slide, the land at 48th and Central. Does that sound right? Is that kind of, as you understand it, what they would end up doing?
Correct.
So if they, I like the idea of getting more money. I guess I just am not certain if that's in the works. You know, so if we go that route, my concern is that we say, hey, want to buy this, which the answer could likely be no. And then as it says on here, now they're using land they already own, but now as a city, forget about council for a minute, as a citizen of Billings, now we're looking at building a school on, we got to find more land. So I like the general idea of it, but not that I necessarily think that I can think of anything else to go there, but 50 years, I won't be around for the renewal of that lease, not just as council. I don't know if I'd be alive at that point. So anyway, I think it's a bit long.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lindley. Mr. Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, when I thought about this ground leases, Parks doesn't do a lot of ground leases. I think we did some stuff for Oasis. We gave them, yeah, is that better? Okay. For Oasis, we gave them the land initially, and then they built a great pool for the whole Heights community. And then several years after that, we gave them a lease for, I don't know how long it was, but like $1 a year. But again, they built out some trails and basketball courts and stuff like that. And again, very, very good for the community. But as far as, you know, typically ground leases like this, the one who does it the most is the airport. And so the airport does that. And I took a look at that and I talked to Jeff and, you know, again, just ground, no water, no sewer is about 29 cents a square. There's about 650,000 square feet in that land. And so you're looking at probably, where I came, 188,000 a year would be the typical cost for, and that's the low end. It's, I'm sorry, 180,000 at 29 cents a square. You know, some commercial leases can go anywhere from 4 to 8%. So you're talking anywhere 32 to 70,000, you know, for some bare land. So it really depends on the use. This is a little bit different. It's next to the sugar beet factory up at the airport. It's a little bit more commercial and they have desire to be up there. So there's some demand up there. And so I think what we're talking about here on the pricing is way too low. I don't disagree with Councilmember Kennedy is just offer to sell it, put that on the ballot, buy it, you own it, we're done with it. No more leasing, no more worry and stuff like that. But if we are going to do a leasing, I think it needs to be more towards the market. we probably should get NAA or one of our realtors to say what is the market value of a lease for that ground lane. Because if it's worth $875,000, it's worth something in ground lease too. The other consideration I had on this was, it'd be nice to get something developed there, because along Riverside there's no sidewalks along that whole area. And if that's city property, we need sidewalks in there. And then the sugar beet factory is in the city property, and we could order sidewalks in there, and we'd have sidewalks all the way from state all the way down there. And then we'd actually get sidewalks there along at least one side of it, because the other side is mostly county. So I'd like to see us do something, but the devil's in the details as far as, what we're going to do. I'm concerned that we're maybe undervaluing this property quite a bit, and it is a public asset that we need to take care of. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. Ms. Aguirre?
Thank you. I would think that selling it outright is really short-sighted. I look at this proposal and it gives me hope, because it's a collaboration between the city and the school district. And I think that we need to see a whole lot more of these kinds of collaborations in our community, because we only do so much better and so much stronger when we work together. My other point is that I think the 2% is low. When you think of annual inflation, like when we all get staff raises, 3 to 4% is pretty common. So I would recommend 3 to 4% rather than 2%. But the rest of it, I think, is very amenable, and it, again, is a showing of collaboration and support between entities.
Ms. Shaw?
Thanks. Gavin, does the school district even want to buy it? Is that has that conversation happened at all? I can't imagine that they've got a spare $875,000 sitting around as another entity funded on property taxes. That would shock me. But is there any appetite for that?
Mayor and Council, Councilman Shaw, that conversation has been broached, but never given really dedicated time to explore. And this is my own speculation. Obviously, I do not know their finances. I don't think that's palatable for them, but I can have a much more direct conversation to see if that is an option.
I mean, financially, I can't imagine it would be palatable for them either. I just wondered if you've had any even preliminary discussions of like, well, what if it's $400,000? What if the city just gives you a really good deal, but you end up with the land? To Councilmember Lindley's point, we're all paying for all of this anyway on our property taxes, so it's going to come back at us one way or another, whether it's the city or the school district.
So, Mayor and Council and Councilwoman Shaw, if I may just piggyback off your comment for a second. I guess this is the way I'm looking at it, is currently it generates 0. This is an idea that now generates 1.5 over 50. It's not necessarily ideal by any means. Something is better than nothing with this. If you do a lease, also, there is the bonus that the city retains this property, and maybe something down the road, I don't know how many generations, maybe there's an opportunity. I don't know. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to both the selling outright, leasing. Council member Neese said it best, the devil's really in the details. And that's where I think the 11 of you really have to think about what you want to do with this space. Because also to Councilmember Neese's point, Parks, Rec, and Public Lands, we don't do a lot of ground leases.
Yeah, but my final comment is I do agree with Councilmember Aguirre that I don't mind giving the school district a great deal on the lease payment. I don't care if it's under market value, because it's another public entity that is serving our community. But I think the escalator is one to look at, of getting that a little bit closer to inflation.
Mr. Boyette?
So the banker in me is just showing up. I just did a present value of $18,000 in 50 years. It actually ranges from $63 to $2,300. So the money is worthless. We shouldn't do a 50-year lease. I mean, if you want to be generous, just give it to them to start with. But to me, this $18,000 is kind of a joke. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't serve the Parks Department much, $18,000. either make it worth its while and shorten the time or do something totally different than this 50 years. That's, to me, that's just crazy. You can't you get a house loan as maximum of 30 years. Why would we want to do 50? Because none of us will be here. Nobody in this audience will be here in 50 years to even care about this. And the money will be worthless.
I plan to be here in 50 years.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Then you remember that your money will be worth $63.
That's awesome.
I just think we come up with a better scenario than this is all.
Thank you, Mr. Boyette. Mr. Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Gavin, I forgot to ask you this. Right now, you mentioned in your presentation here, no cost, no storage support for the city. How much does Public Works pay the Parks Departments now for storing snow on the park land?
Mayor and council, Councilmember Neese, 0.
Okay. So I think that needs to be rectified, first of all, so we have Public Works paying for storing that snow. That would put a little bit of money into the budget of parks. Not a lot, but it'd be something. It's going to pay for something. The other thing we have to consider is if we just give it to them, then this money is gone. It's not, it's public land that's going to go away. If we sell it to them, that's $875,000 less commissions into the Parks Department to do something like add to South Park Pool, something like that. So I think we need, I like the idea of doing something like this, but if we're going to sell it, my first preference would be selling. If not, I think we need to look at more, making some changes. And thank you, Councilmember Aguirre. I forgot about the escalator. That's something else that the airport does have in there. And they usually tie theirs to the CPIU index. Now, whether that's an appropriate index or not, that usually tracks the inflation. And so I think that's something that we would want to do. I think right off the bat, though, before we do any of that, we should contact Public Works and let them know that the rent's going up from 0 to, $18,000 a year. So we're at least getting something on it. And then as far as the lease goes, typically, and this is what I'm getting from the airport minimum lease is usually around $30,000 because on a ground lease they're going to have to get a bank loan and they're going to have to build on it, and the bank's not going to loan you any money unless you've got a 30-year lease. And so like a 30-year lease with a 20-year extension to get to the 50 would probably be fine in my estimation, as long as we have a good starting basis on the lease rate and then a good escalator to keep up with inflation on that. And then at the 20 years, you can always throw in, terms to renegotiate the escalator or something like that. I would get together with the airport department to really work on how that lease is. Like say they do it all the time. But I think the key is we need to bring that money, whatever that revenue is this land generates, needs to come into the Parks Department. And we need to think about how it's going to be utilized for the Parks Department too. So that's another consideration is what are we going to do with that money when it comes in? If it's $18,000 a year, it's probably just going to go in the general fund. If we're selling it for $875, where can we take that $875 and do, because it's typically designed for a park with that community in mind. So where are we going to benefit that local community with it? So those are some of the considerations I have. The only thing I would say again is please contact Public Works and renegotiate your lease.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. Get ready. The phone's going to ring tomorrow morning at 9. Mr. Pittman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm not sure it's a fair comparison for this park to airport property. That's probably not even apples to grapes. But certainly the point is making sure we're doing our due diligence. I think this is an opportunity for us to have a relationship with School District 2. Sometimes we've had land we've needed to swap that was beneficial to us or not beneficial to us. So there's a couple other options. What I'm hearing from the council, I'm kind of taking your idea here a little, but I think we want to have this discussion and maybe explore a lot of the other possibilities, and maybe buying isn't an option, or maybe these escalators are flexible. I know that part of school districts funding buses are separate funding from a lot of their other funding sources. So that might have something that drives some of this potential cost or ability to pay as well. It's not coming out of school books or something like that, or teacher pay. So I think my encouragement is to continue this conversation with them. I think it's a good conversation to have. I think there's a lot of possibilities, maybe something we haven't actually thought about. Maybe there is a land swap that's beneficial to you. I'm not sure. I think we rectified some of the stuff over by Beartooth and maybe even Castle Rock. There's been some land issues. So explore those and maybe, is there a time frame that this is time sensitive to?
Mayor and Council Member Pittman, for me, no. For SD2, yes, okay. Because they need to prepare to get the language on the ballot for November.
Okay, Mr. Lindley, then Dr. Nicholson.
Thanks. I'll try to make it brief. First of all, I think Councilmember Pittman's suggestion of looking at land swaps, other alternatives like that is a good one to at least take a look at. I think that makes sense. I would just say, you know, in this conversation, I want to remind everybody that, well, let me ask you a question first. Would this be the entire Wilson Park complex? Or just
Mayor and Council Member? Yes.
Okay. So that isn't exactly like the YVAS situation. However, I do want to remind everybody that we were talking about giving that land away. And to then get stuck on we want to make a bunch of profit off it just seems like it hasn't been that long since, and I wasn't here then, but I know what happened, that it was a decision that we were going to give it away. So is it worth something? Is it not worth something? We talked about Oasis in the Heights. We gave them land, and then we let them do a lease at $1 a year. So I think we need a little consistency with, if it's for the public good, and this certainly is for the public good, I think we should try to be flexible.
Dr. Nicholson and Mr. O'Donnell.
What I've learned from being in city council is you can't buy a pencil sharpener for $18,000 in this business. It's just seems like a small amount. But I was wondering, what else could this land be used for?
So, Mayor and Council, Councilmember Nicholson, there is not a clear line of sight on how we would develop this space. Currently, we use it as a compost site, snow storage, and there's a tree farm there that has been there for a while. It's not active. There is no clear line of what we would do with this space in the way of development.
Could it be used for housing or something? Build housing?
So, Mayor and Council Member, absolutely, right? So this property, again, was not part of the original 11 that I brought forth to the elected body in the property disposition list, because it was earmarked for the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter at one time. So we haven't given a lot of time into looking, okay, is it outright sale? Is it housing? Is it ground lease? Is it departmental needs? There's not a lot of depth there.
So we don't know if it would be something that could go on, be sold for specific use like housing or anything like that.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. I have a question for self-proclaimed banker Boyette. I want to compare the $18,000 a year to what the payment would be on a $900,000 loan. It may take him a while to do that calculation. Are we in the same ballpark? Can you not hear me?
He can hear
It's
you.
the 50 years that's the problem, not the $18,000. It's just the money isn't worth anything in 50 years. Believe it or not, it could be anywhere from $63 to $2,300. So, I mean, to me, that's nothing. Why waste your time with that? Either do a real lease or just give it to them. That's the only other option. But this is such a small, insignificant amount of money. It doesn't matter in 50 years whether we get it or not. You probably won't be able to pay for a sandwich with $18,000 in 50 years. I mean, it's so, who knows what it'll be worth.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I was just trying to compare the $18,000 a year lease payment to what it would cost them to actually buy it. As Councilman Neese was talking about just selling, I believe it was he, but just selling the land. I wonder what the difference is in terms of the money outlay for this, the school district.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Let's see, Mr. Kennedy, then Ms. Shaw, then Mr. Neese.
Okay, we've gone around the turn on the whole thing. It is our taxpayer dollars, the school district dollars, the city dollars. For God's sake, give them the parkland and let them build their bus barn, and let's move on.
Ms. Shaw?
I actually agree with that. I was going to say my comment, it would be, I'm fine with giving it away. We were already going to do that for YVAS. It's the school district. It benefits our kids. I don't have a problem with that personally. And if that makes it cleaner and easier for them, if you can throw a land swap in there to sweeten the deal, all the better. But I would be all right with that. It sounds also like Councilmember Boyette and Kennedy are fine with it too.
Mr. Neese?
So, yeah, I'm not okay with that because one of the things you have to remember is Oasis was a parkland that we gave away and they turned it to a park. And so it wasn't that we gave it away. We actually kept the expense from going to the Parks Department and kept the expense from the taxpayers to have to build a park. And so they've actually provided that for us. So they've actually built the park with us giving them the land. On the YVAS, that deal was never finished, but there's also discussions in there, and because they were only taking half of it or 8 acres, is, yeah, okay, we're going to give this, it's $400,000 it's worth, you're going to give us 10 years of, services or reduced services for X number of years. And so there was going to be an exchange there, but we never really completed a deal. So it wasn't like we were just giving it away. We were exchanging some sort of value back to the city, to the taxpayers to reduce their burden. And so I think just giving away land like that, I can't think of a time we've given away land where we got nothing in return unless the land just wasn't worth it. We're giving away the school land, that strip, 2.2 acres and surrounded by school land. It makes sense to give that away. I have no issue with that one. But in this one, I think it's a valuable piece of land. We should get something for it because it's the taxpayer's money.
Thank you. Ms. Aguirre?
Well, I, for one, am loving the direction this conversation is going. But I do just kind of want to remind everyone that Wilson Park was gifted to the city. We did not acquire it or purchase it any other way. So I think this is a beautiful way to pay it forward. So to be clear, I would be perfectly happy of gifting the land.
Yes, Mr. Walter.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I would ask this. If it is the direction of this body to gift that land to SD2, I would make one caveat, and is that we would sell it at the expense of what it has cost us to remove the LWCF designation.
How much was that?
I'm going to say it's about $100,000 total. Less than $100,000 total.
Well, I think it's incumbent on me to see if I can sum up. And let me see if I'm even close. Yes, and we will do that right after public comment. So step aside, Mr. Walter. Anybody who would like to comment on what you've just heard regarding the Wilson Park lease or disposition of that property, please step forward. Tell us your name, where you live, and take your 3 minutes.
Ellis Tillery, 59101. I had not heard much of this before, but I didn't think I'd be agreeing with, from previous discussion and his hat, Councilmember Kennedy, but I do, because this money, especially like $18,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but think about what keeping that in the school district 2 budget could mean for students. If we're so interested in retaining this land that's not doing anything for us right now, why not lease it to them for like $1 a year? If we're so interested in that for a shorter term, why not work closely with them like we say we're going to? I don't understand. This whole thing just like screams waste to me. Why are we pulling 18 grand a year from the school district for something that could be an email, basically? It just doesn't rub me right when schools are already underfunded and we're struggling to retain educators who are good quality, right? It just, I know it's a pretty policy proposal infographic, but I don't think that it's a good idea to charge them that much. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, administration, Paul Clark, Ward 1. Yes, I too was attending these meetings when we were going to give that land to Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter. And I do remember the anonymous gift giver who intended that to be recreational land. I'm sure he would be, if he was here to speak anonymously, again, I'm sure he'd be in favor of some sort of land swap or some other good deed done to the school system. That land south of the sugar factory, I hope you all are aware how contaminated that water and soil are. So if you think you can get someone to build property, dig down 2 feet and get into that seep, good luck. That land, let's get out of it. If you want to turn it to a park like maybe Anaconda, where it was a smelter, put a golf course there, beautiful. But I'm sure the anonymous donor would not mind giving this to the school system. God bless.
Anybody else want to talk about the Wilson Park land or lease? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and ask Mr. Wiltshire to come back. So I think it's easy to say we have consensus that we want to get rid of the property. The options, I think, are give it away. 1, 2, swap it, which would be neat if they had some land that we needed. Or 3, lease it for something that's a little better than the deal we have right here, Mr. Boyette. Or Mr. Boyette has one more. Yes. There you go.
Here. And that includes in perpetuity getting no cost storage. If so.
If you can make the deal, I think, yeah.
Is there any sense in putting a revisionary clause on that? So once they build out their barn and 20 years later decide they don't want to do it, they sell it to, first student, that we want that property back? Or just let them take it and sell it? And
What's the council's wish on that? So there'd be some sort of a clawback provision. So would there be is there consensus for a clawback, or do you want to just wipe your hands of it? Mr. Boyette?
When I give you a gift of $20 for Christmas, I shouldn't be able to tell you what to do with it. If we're going to sell this land for $100,000, it's their land. We shouldn't have any caveats. If we lease it, that's a different story.
Anything else, Ms. Shaw?
I do want to just voice my support. I think you're right. We should at least get the cost of having to do this land transfer, because the city has sunk money into that, which we did for YVAS. But we would have to do it. They would have to have us do the same thing to build a bus barn on it. So I think it's fair. I think that's very fair.
I see a lot of heads
I would
nodding
ask you to have someone make a motion of direction so we can vote on it.
Okay. Mr. Boyette?
I move that we give direction to staff to examine how much the cost was to transfer that land to get it out so that we can dispose of it. And that would be our fee to sell the land outright.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or debate regarding the motion? Mr. Boyer, you want to speak to it? We've talked enough, I agree. Okay, Mr. Pittman's first.
So I got ahead of you on this one. So I just don't want to preclude any opportunities. I don't want us so locked in that that's our only option. I don't know what kind of conversations you've had up to this point with School District 2. If there is a land swap or some other alternatives that would benefit both of us, have you had those conversations?
No.
I mean, even if it's just taking a couple of days and having them watch this meeting, think outside the box for a little bit. I'm not sure it's that time critical. I'm sure they have a specific time they need to go out and do something. But certainly a couple of days for you to sit down and talk to them and see what might benefit both parties would be something I'd be interested in.
Mr. Neese?
So clarification, the motion doesn't include the strip of land on, by the Career Center, and the motion does not include the no-cost storage for the snow. Is your intent not to include those in the motion of direction?
I think those are separate items from the price. I think we can discuss those next if you wish. But I also agree, I mean, to change my motion, but I'd like to include the possibility of you visiting with them about a potential, maybe they have some land that, you know, an acre, 2 acres, 5 acres, something that we might use. If they don't, then we got our motion.
Okay, I think, how's this? I don't want to get too close to a business meeting and those rules, but we have given direction to Mr. Walter. If you could summarize it to us so that we know that we've been semi-clear to you, then I think that would be a good way to go. Sure. Okay.
Mayor and council, this is what I have captured from this conversation, is that I will speak out with SD2 and propose the following: that this land would be gifted at the price of LWCF removal designation, that the Career Center Park is part of still the donation, and that if they see it upon themselves to provide reasonable locations for snow storage, we would investigate that as well.
And one more.
And one more for Mr. Boyette.
That your first discussion would be, do you have any other land that you don't need? That, because we're going to give you a bunch of land, could you give us some land in return? Why not? At least ask.
Agreed.
Can't hurt.
Nope, can't hurt.
All they can say is no.
Yep.
So, and I don't know how to broach this. I was not expecting this conversation. When we look at property disposition and that conversation about getting rid of excess parkland that we do not have clear lines, sight lines for development, I guess I'm having a hard time marrying that with acquiring additional land from SD2.
Go ahead, Mr. Pittman.
Sorry. So there is land up by Castle Rock that is between 2 school districts that it's kind of no man's land. There might be some parcels that are beneficial throughout the school district. That I knew at Beartooth at one point there was a small parcel that we were trying to do a land swap on. So there are some things out there that maybe make it just feasible, because they're obligated on how they dispose or acquire property as well.
So Mayor and Council, I guess maybe I'm looking at it too myopically and bring that conversation out citywide. So if there were, I'm totally making this up, PW needs, then that would be inclusive of this conversation, and it shouldn't just be parkland.
Yes, sir. I like that. Anything else regarding the Wilson Park lease? Banker Mike?
Gotcha.
Okay. I think we have consensus. All right, let's vote then. Thumbs up, everybody give me a thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 9-1, majority. Okay. I think we're good.
Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, item number 3, Department of Justice Model Cities Initiative. Before we get started, Ms. Dahl, it's now 7:41. Everybody okay with going forward, or would you like a break? All right, we're ready.
Thanks, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I am just presenting to you tonight this grant opportunity for your discussion. This is a notice of funding opportunity that was put out by the DOJ for a grant opportunity for providing anywhere between 75 million and 150 million to just a couple of jurisdictions, 2 to 4 jurisdictions over 3 years, for implementing a comprehensive strategy to reduce crime, strengthen public safety, and serve as national models for effective community safety initiatives. So city staff was approached by All Rise, which is a nonprofit organization that provides training and technical assistance to more than 500,000 justice professionals in every state. They currently have ongoing relationship with Billings, Yellowstone County Treatment Courts, and that relationship was sort of what brought Billings to their attention. They felt that Billings was well positioned to put in for this this opportunity. Don't get me wrong, this is going to be a very, very competitive process. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of local governments, jurisdictions throughout the country who will be competing for this grant. And so, you know, the likelihood of success here is, frankly, probably pretty small, but it's an opportunity to consider nonetheless. This nonprofit, All Rise, is willing to prepare and develop this grant application. It's going to have to be a very comprehensive plan. The initiative places a strong emphasis on collaboration. Applicants must demonstrate support from not only local elected officials, law enforcement leaders, prosecutors, health and human service agencies, community supervision officials, and governing bodies. This initiative, this requirement recognizes that many public safety challenges extend beyond policing alone. Communities often achieve the best outcomes when law enforcement, behavioral health providers, victim advocates, and re-entry organizations work together to address underlying drivers of crime and improve community safety. While this grant application, well, phase 1 of this grant application is due September 1st, we are still in the beginning phases of this and are still reaching out to community partners and engaging them and getting feedback and determining what, if any, ideas or requests or what their needs may be. It's early, and so we're still discussing what that comprehensive plan or what that comprehensive strategy would be. This is going to have to be put together quickly. There's going to have to really be a lot of cooperation among all of the different professionals, community partners. We have had a few meetings already. We've met with the county attorney who needs to expand their prosecution services significantly. That would be their ask. We've met with the jail, or excuse me, with the sheriff. We've talked with youth court services. We've talked the fire chief. We talked to Chief Hopple. We've talked to Chief St. John. We're engaging the courts. We've discussed this with the Family Justice Center. We've reached out to the Crisis Center, Tumbleweed, Rimrock, some different sober and transitional housing. We've engaged the alternatives who run Alpha House and those reentry services. So there are a lot of partners that need to be involved in this. But this is a significant transformational opportunity for Billings and Yellowstone County. So just a couple of other, I guess, points I'd like to make is that just to address some of the comments that I've seen come into council through emails, that there would be no ongoing restrictions or oversight after 36 months. That would obviously be what the oversight would be during the grant period. An application submittal is not the same as signing a cooperative grant agreement. The phase 1 application would be due September 1st. If Billings somehow made it past phase 1, it would be invited to an interview, provide a presentation to DOJ officials. And then at that point, I think we would know more about what kind of terms and conditions and oversight would be required. I make no mistake, it seems to be very clear that there's going to be pretty intensive oversight, that DOJ wants to be very closely involved here. But there's also been some discussion and concern among, I have heard questions and concern about the reimbursement requirement. So as stated in the staff memo, any award will include a condition requiring the recipient to reimburse DOJ for costs associated with federal law enforcement intervention or assistance provided in the event of a future surge in violent crime or public disorder in the city. So the specific terms that would govern at the time of the award. The amount and triggering circumstances are not yet defined, and that's not in the call for applications. So this represents a contingent, currently unquantified financial obligation. I would expect that would be outlined more in the cooperative agreement. That is something that council could consider at the time. Certainly, this is not if you submit a grant application, you must sign the cooperative agreement. Clearly, you could take this step at a time. I think there were some other questions that council has probably heard, but at this point, I think I'm just going to throw it to you to discuss and ask me any further questions that you may have, unless Jessica wants to add anything. No? Okay. I think we got it mostly covered.
Okay, thank you. Questions for our presenter, Mr. Lindley, then Ms. Dernice.
Thanks, Mayor. Let's see. So the first thing that I wanted to mention, there's two terms getting, I think a bit confused. There's a lot of talk about this being a grant, but it's a cooperative agreement. So this is not just money that's given. So I think based on that, some of the details are important. When you talk about the reimbursement for potential future surges into the city, can you think of other contracts, or I guess I haven't seen any where we agree to an uncapped liability like that?
No, I don't. And I guess I would just want to mention that I don't know that it would be capped or uncapped. I think that's an unknown at this point. It simply is a broad statement in the grant solicitation. So it could very well be an unlimited. I really just can't answer that.
Is there anything in the document that makes you think that it's going to be capped?
No, I have no way of knowing.
Okay.
It's just a broad statement.
And there was also talk about even receiving funds that which would make sense based on the fact that it's a cooperative agreement. Department of Justice controls all the terms and funds release. So it isn't necessarily like you're just getting X amount of dollars. You're getting X amount of dollars, excuse me, based on hitting milestones that I don't necessarily see as clearly defined. So I guess all that to say, I don't think we would ever enter into agreements in any other area of the city. I certainly wouldn't vote for one where we would have uncapped liability, not have any idea what we're walking into. So I think any future work on this should not be done, and that we should just put it to bed.
I guess I would say that I would anticipate those types of things that would be outlined in a cooperative agreement. But I completely understand the concerns and am simply presenting this for consideration.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
All right, Mr. Neese, then Ms. Shaw, then Mr. Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Gina, thanks for looking for funding sources like we need, and this is a funding source. It does appear to have a lot of strings that we're not sure of. And so just a couple of questions as I read through it. Do I understand correctly? I'm a little not quite sure, but can we pick and choose how and where we spend the money? Or does it, if we say we want to use the money for Family Justice Center, can the DOJ come in and say, nope, that's not where you want it. We want it doing something else? Can they tell us how to use the money?
Councilmember Neese, I think that, I think ultimately they can say yes or no, yes. And the solicitation makes it clear that the applicant has to set forth a really comprehensive plan, and it needs to include all of these different areas, which includes victim response, reentry services for offenders, things like that. So, but ultimately, yes, I think they will look at it and say that we like this, it aligns with our priorities, or no, it doesn't.
Okay, so what you're saying is we're going to have a plan of we want this program, this program, this program, and they're going to look at it and say, yeah, let's fund this, this, and this. They may say, no, they don't fund the Family Justice Center, but we're going to do the reentry or something like that. Is that?
I believe so. Yes, it's our responsibility to provide a comprehensive strategy, and not just say we want.
Okay, and because we haven't applied, I mean, this is just a application letter. It doesn't give all the details.
Right.
We don't know when we're going to see it until we even get approved for it. Go through phase 1, phase 2, and then they would send it to us and we can say, no, this is too restrictive. We're not going to do this. Is that?
I guess I would anticipate phase 2 would be where we'd be, whoever would be the representative of the plan to discuss that would be presenting to DOJ, and I think that is when those discussions would occur.
Okay. And then, Mayor, just real quick, we got a letter this afternoon because you mentioned a bunch of partners you're working with. One of them, the letter came in from John Forte this afternoon. He mentioned he had not been contacted on this. So does every organization in the city need to agree to signing this? And so it's not just the city of Billings signing, but everyone's going to be signing on the dotted line somehow?
Anybody who's going to be participating and yes, there does need to be a collaborative effort here. And just for clarification, Riverstone's was on the list to be contacted. They just simply hadn't. And so actually, I made sure that I responded immediately to John Forte, and then got the All Rise people. They contacted him already, so they're engaging with him.
So let's say you have a party of 20 organizations that you're contacting. Riverstone's one of them. And they say, you know what, we're out, we're not doing it. So you got 19. Can a plan still be put forward and approved? Or can the city go alone on this and get it approved, and then the city would be on the entire hook? Or does all the organizations in the city have to agree to sign on the dotted line?
The city can't do this alone. It's bigger than that. It really needs to be citywide. It needs to address all of the different goals. So
any one of these organizations have veto powers that would kill it?
Well, I don't think necessarily veto power, but there may be other entities that could pick that up if one entity, if there's more than one provider type of, if there's more than one provider that provides the same kind of services. So I think that there is some flexibility, but not a whole lot.
Okay, and then Mayor, one last question. His recommendation was, I think, to go through the coalition. Is that something that you guys are trying to get all the organizations to meet to talk about this? Or is this every organization has to hear this separately and decide whether they want to do this or not?
No, what the certifications need to come, well, there needs to be a specific certification from the local government that is sort of I guess I would call it sponsor, I guess. Then the other certifications simply include the different partnerships, and they have to sign off, but they don't have to do the same type of certification and going to their council. Like, for example, a county attorney, that's an elected official, so he can sign on for himself, and same thing with the sheriff. And we've engaged them too, and they're on board with pursuing at least phase 1.
Riverstone's not responsible for this unfunded liability. It would just be the city, the sponsoring entity.
I believe that's correct.
Thank you.
With the little information that I have.
Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I'm usually one that's like, just an application is not accepting it, apply, let's see what happens. But this one, I am really stuck on, and for two reasons. The first is we complain all the time about the state taking away local control, and this is like a souped up version of that from the federal government, which makes me deeply uncomfortable of them getting involved in trying to dictate how our police department I don't like any of that. And the second piece is the unspecified surge cost, which I think is just absolutely bonkers. Like the idea that we would put the city on the hook for could be tens of millions of dollars, who knows? And we don't even get to determine what is a surge or when that would happen is wild to me. So
I don't necessarily know that that's true, though. I mean, I think that the triggers would be included in the cooperative agreement. I would certainly not advise council to sign something that was just completely open-ended like that.
But I guess my point is that there are no terms in which I would find that acceptable.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I don't think there's any reason why we should ever be paying the feds for doing whatever it is they're doing. That's their business. Our business locally is to take care of our police officers. That's my perspective. So the fact that it would have to be negotiated, there is no version of it that I would accept. So I'm definitely strongly of the opinion we should not continue with this or apply for it.
Mr. Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple questions. There's a company called All Rise. They're the ones that contacted us. What's their cut on this deal? Do you have an idea for number one?
We do. I think it was 5. Jessica, go ahead.
So it was no cost to do the application for us, and then they had said around 5 to 10% depending on the award.
So that's quite a bit.
That would include, let me see their scope of services. That would include assisting with the overall project management, designing the comprehensive strategy, facilitating collaboration, providing expert training, professional development, developing operational policies, procedures, and implementation, establishing performance measures, an outcome tracking system, supporting data collection, reporting, and continuous quality improvement efforts.
But it could be several $1 million.
Correct.
Okay. The second question is, we're going to have staff work on this. Have we thought about how long it would take if we were going to do this, how much time it would take, and what's our cost even to apply for this properly, phase 1 and phase 2? Any idea? I mean, you may not, but.
So when we met with All Rise last week, I did ask them that question, what the staff, I guess what the expectation was for staff. They had said around 10 hours of staff time, I guess depending on how many people we had on those, but they were thinking 10 hours of meetings to get to the point where we could have a good phase 1 application. Phase 2, unknown.
And then.
Go ahead, Mr. Boyette.
I believe that's correct.
Councilmember Aguirre.
Thank you. Just kind of reviewing this information that we were given on this item, my biggest concerns are that the verbiage in there saying the award conditions include a required certification of compliance with immigration status information sharing. And then also that, where is it? So under all of their 7 objective goals, or the 8, we're not required to address every objective listed, but we must demonstrate a comprehensive strategy addressing violent crime reduction, data and intelligence capacity. And that's the one that I'm stuck on, because clearly nobody wants flock cameras and everything that goes with it, the drones, all of that just speaks to military lifestyle, or, living under military presence. And furthermore, with having to agree about the immigration status information sharing, that just further shrinks our capacity to serve our communities well. Because when you're in that marginalized group, you're not going to report crime, you're not going to
do anything to engage with officers, which in fact increases danger. The overarching message of surges of whatever, that, that blows my mind, because that's, in my mind, that is just the language of fear-mongering. Like, are we expecting some kind of a surge of crime? Are there indicators showing us that crime is surging? Maybe in some ways it is. I understand, and I do not take lightly the death of a 14-year-old recently. But when I think surges, I think of, well, the crime that ICE imposed on Minneapolis. Like, I don't think we're going to see anything like that. And to make it kind of feel like it's something that we just have to expect at some point, it, again, is part of the fear-mongering language. I do not want any further work done on this grant. I appreciate your due diligence and talking with partner organizations and bringing to us all this information that you've put together. But I think overall, this is a bad deal for Billings. I think it's shaking hands with the devil. And to Mr. Jarusi's point, they're not just strings that are attaching us to the DOJ, but steel cables. That's terrifying to me.
Mr. Kennedy.
This is a 3-month federal grant period to write a grant. You got into this less than a month to put all this together. It's a pie in the sky. It's not going to happen. And you have 4 of these nationwide. It's not going to happen. I write a lot of grants. And I haven't seen one. I will say I agree with Councilwoman Shaw. Make note of that. That the one thing on it is I'm always saying that we don't want the state controlling us. We want to control our own destiny. And I don't want anything with strings attached telling us this is what the feds are going to tell us what to do. So because of that, and it's very unclear, and you don't have enough time actually to put it all together, because there's other things we've heard. We had a meeting with you, and after a meeting one night that said this is everything we've done, this is what we're doing in our department. We just don't have time. So I just think you're putting things together.
My department's not writing this grant. We have All Rise who provides technical and training assistance to.
You're spending time on it, aren't you?
I'm not. I'm actually not spending. I'm assisting with facilitating community partners, but I'm actually not.
Okay.
Because I'm just trying to get community partners together to discuss it. So I'm not spending.
It take
any
you a
grant.
long time to get community to partners.
That's what All Rise is doing now. I've passed it off to them, and they're handling it.
I'm not supportive of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is new. This is, I think, the first time we've saw it, heard about it, and yet it seems there's been a lot of community conversations taking place, unbeknownst to us. Is the county able to sponsor this? Are they just looking for cities, or do you know?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if a county could sponsor it or not, frankly.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is just leading into, there's just so many questions behind this. And to what Councilman Kennedy was saying, it's a short period of time to try to put this together.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a couple of questions. I think there's fear mongering words on a lot of sides of this issue versus just what is the grant and what does it do. we don't know. There's certain groups and people that are saying this is what it'll do, and others saying it won't do that. So I think having a community conversation, which is what this has triggered, is going to be a good thing. But you don't have a lot of time to have that conversation, to a point that it did state in the staff report that all of these organizations had been contacted and were on board. And then we hear maybe not. So I think we need to hear a consistent message there. 300 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but it could be 2 to 4 communities. So it could be 75 million, or it could be we get 1 million and LA gets the rest or something like that. I mean, there's not a guaranteed amount of money here. So that's another thing. And then finally, just the sustainability. If we put this into place, and let's say we get $75 million a year or whatever it's going to be, how do we sustain that 3 years after we've got all these things going on and implemented? What do we do on year 4? Especially if these things, and let's play, sunshine and lollipops, that everything we do works perfectly, that we solve transition out of jails and domestic violence, and we just knock it out of the ballpark. What do we do on year 4?
That's a really good point. And that's something we've discussed because we wanted to make sure the partners were not focused on simply personnel issues and that it was focused more on programs or other infrastructure. However, there are some entities that do need the personnel support. The one I can think of most easily is the county attorney's office. They need the prosecution support, but you're absolutely correct. And that's something that any entity who wanted to get on board with this needs to consider, that those costs would need to be picked up at the end of the 3-year period. So that's certainly a consideration.
Just one more thing. And the other thing is just that, where was I going with this one? It just goes back to the sustainability. I had a thought, and it's gone now, and I'm trying to recover it.
That sustainability is a huge one.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody else. Missed all. Hi, Miss Dr. Nicholson. Go. But powerful. Pack a lot in a small body.
Yeah, and I always, I'm going to oppose this. There's a lot of good reasons. Probably the reason I'm going to rely on most is that the public comment I've gotten from this in the email, what we heard here, is largely opposing it for some very good reasons. And then bear with me here. This is a novel program, and during my career as a doctor, I had opportunity to prescribe new drugs. And it didn't take me very long to learn that I should not be the first one I know to prescribe a new drug, because you have no idea what the side effects are going to be. You want to get your colleagues to try the new drug on their patients. And after you find out what they're dealing with, then maybe you're get enough information to do it. And I don't think we should be the first city to pursue a program like this when we don't know how it will actually play out. And I certainly don't want to look like Memphis or Washington, D.C. with National Guard troops patrolling the South Side, downtown, wherever. I think we should let somebody else do this.
Thank you, Dr. Nicholson. It's my turn to weigh in. First, thanks. This was a great discussion. It got the attention of a lot of folks, and I think that's very important. And I have to applaud you for bringing this forward. I think it was probably a tough decision, but you were doing your job here, because I think you saw an opportunity to possibly get up to $75 million over 3 years for the city of Billings. But like everybody else, I have a little bit of heart pain, chest pain, whatever it is from this too, and not the least of which is the certification by the mayor that says, I acknowledge that a material materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement, or concealment or omission of a material fact in this certification or in the application that it supports may be the subject of criminal prosecution. I really like my house. I don't want to check into the Long Bar Hotel if somebody makes a mistake. It could, because it goes further on to say that it's not just for the application, but it's certifications provided in connection with such awards or subject. So I'd have a little heartburn making a signing now for everything that's going to happen over the next 3 years. But believe it or not, the one heartburn I have is even greater than that, is I really have a hard time ceding authority over this city to anybody but the city itself. I really think this is a great opportunity to review what we're all about and to take a good hard look at what we want. Do we want enough money to put cashmere seats in the police vehicles, or do we want to have control of our own destiny? So anyway, Ms. Dahl, thank you for bringing this forward. I think this is a great review. I don't think I would be for it either. So is there anything else from
Public
council?
comment?
Yes, I know. I was getting ready to say that, but thanks for the reminder because my record's not been good tonight. Anything else from the council before we go to public comment?
Mayor, one question.
Yes, Mr. Neese.
Do you, because you're correct, there's so much in here that just doesn't make sense, but is any of this, do you think any of this is negotiable? Sounds to me like this is it. Take it or leave it. Is that?
Councilmember Neese, I have no idea, and I don't think that I would get any answers about that until you're actually at the phase where you're looking at a cooperation agreement. I don't know that, generally, no. I mean, those kinds of things aren't negotiable, but this is also a collaborative effort, but it's supposed to be a collaborative effort between the local jurisdiction as well as DOJ, so.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Aguirre.
Just curious, are there any other cities in Montana looking at this opportunity, quote unquote opportunity?
I don't know if anybody is doing it on their own. I know that All Rise didn't contact any other jurisdictions in Montana, but it's possible that but there is the eligibility
You
requirement.
have to be
of
over 100,000.
Yeah,
So Billings is the only Montana city that would qualify.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we open it up to public comment? All right, I'm going to open it up to public comment with the caution that if you've already spoken on this issue, you can't speak on it again. If you've already spoken on this issue.
I didn't say anything about the MCI.
Okay, come forward.
Again, my name is Lane Dorsey. I'm a member of the Billings Alliance for Immigrant Rights. And I just want to say that immigrant rights are non-negotiable. I really appreciate the voiced opposition to this. A lot of people are here against it. You know, there's some vague details that we don't even know yet, but I think that the fact that this initiative would even involve forwarding the information of members of our community to the federal government is a non-starter. So, you know, I appreciate the opposition, but it's still kind of sad that this even made the floor for a possible discussion. You know, our demands for a sanctuary city get nothing from council. I still do appreciate that it doesn't seem like we're moving forward with this. I do want to speak more on the MCI. I mean, this money would be used for really nothing good for the city of Billings and its residents. Last on the list are things about recidivism and youth crime prevention, and first on the list are things about, you know, increasing police force and, you know, the surveillance technologies, right? That's top of the list. So I think that goes to show where the priorities would have been with this initiative. We don't need more surveillance. People, I think most people agree that flock cameras are a problem invading people's privacy, and especially if it's being used by the federal government to target members of our community. I did want to speak on an activist, an immigrants' rights activist who has been targeted by the federal government. Her name is Nadia Topete. She is in Los Angeles. She is a member of Centro CSO. It's an immigrant rights group that is affiliated with our group as well through the Legalization for All network. And she was subpoenaed by the federal government to appear in front of a grand jury for her work in immigrant rights activism. And, you know, immigrant rights activists are already being surveilled, like Nadia Topete and many others who are facing years, decades, and even more in jail time. And we don't need greater surveillance to help the federal government make that mission of repressing activists easier. So again, I appreciate the voiced opposition. I would appreciate if you took a look at our demands for Sanctuary City and considered them. Yeah, so we will be back to continue pushing for those demands because, you know, we don't want the Model Cities Initiative. We want the Sanctuary City Initiative. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan McLean, and I live in Ward 1. I am here tonight speaking on my own behalf, not on behalf of my employer or any professional affiliation. Before I share these written comments, it seems to me that it shouldn't take a grant deadline to collaborate with other community organizations to brainstorm holistic approaches to public safety. I really appreciate the discussion that has been had tonight, and it seems like there's a real opportunity to continue those conversations and collaboration with other organizations. With that said, I guess I'll still voice my opposition to the Model Cities Initiative. You know, under the Trump administration, the DOJ has made it clear they are on a reckless mission to persecute municipalities that have dared to disagree with the federal government and demand cooperation in ICE operations. You know, now is the time to be creative and work shoulder to shoulder with our neighbors rather than abandoning mechanisms that foster collaboration between everyday Montanans and our city leaders. By dissolving the Citizens Police Advisory Board last week, you sent a message to the community that collaboration and creativity when it comes to law enforcement and public safety isn't a priority. Yet this grant was on the agenda tonight. And that promises that very thing, collaboration, but at a much higher cost. I'd like to share a quick story with you in hopes that you'll remember it when you're making decisions that could significantly impact and even harm the many non-US born transplants who call Billings home. My late father, John McLean, met my mother while backpacking in Europe in the early 80s and relocated to Billings to start a life with her shortly after. He was an invaluable member of his community. He volunteered every Sunday at church. He volunteered at Relay for Life and raised money and awareness for multiple sclerosis through the MS 150 bike ride. He participated in the Big Sky State Games, Peaks to Prairies, and other community building events that celebrated and supported local athletics and outdoor recreation. He participated in trash cleanup days and was always willing to lend a hand to his neighbors. After living in Montana for most of his adult life, my dad finally became a US citizen when he was in his 50s, after the laws changed so that he would not be required to relinquish his Australian citizenship in pursuit of that. You see, his heart belonged in two places: on the expansive postcard-like landscapes of the Sunshine Coast and on the untamed shores of Montana's wildest rivers. While my father considered himself apolitical, he had a strong moral compass rooted in one of the things he valued most, his community. When my sisters and I asked him what he wanted for Christmas or his birthday, his favorite response was world peace. If he were alive today, I believe he would be disgusted by the reckless, inhumane, and tactless approach to immigration enforcement. Trump's DOJ sees people like my father as unpatriotic and as numbers that serve to meet some arbitrary deportation quota rather than individuals with families and children who will share their stories at city council meetings long after they are gone.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Katie Harrison. Okay, I just want to thank you all for the thoughtful discussion tonight. I'm still going to read my statement, even though I am optimistic that it's moving in the right direction as far as my personal opinion goes. I know that grant money for our city sounds really enticing, but some money comes with some serious baggage and strings attached. This model city initiative sounds like a wolf in sheep's clothing. My concern regarding the initiative are numerous. One, regarding our privacy. Montana's approach to privacy blends constitutional protections with targeted statutes. Our courts here in Montana have upheld these rights and protections over and over again. And according to the agenda for this evening, Model Cities Initiative funding may be used for license plate readers, AI lethality systems, and drones. Those all sound very terrifying to me. And my next concern is the deadline. In regards to applicants must demonstrate a comprehensive strategy addressing violent crime reduction, data and intelligence capacity, victim services, and behavioral health integration with the criminal justice system. These are a lot of demands that would require a lot of work and a lot of our time. I would encourage you all to focus on the domestic violence work group and what can come out of that instead of what this sounds like is rushing really fast to add a lot more work to our plate. And I think haste would make a lot of waste when we've already gotten the ball rolling in regards to some of the things that this money being thrown at us would falsely claim to fix for us. And then, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad you brought up another concern, which was that you would have to certify this. And so I was going to implore you to please consider the legality and the constitutional implications of something like this. And I wanted to also ask our city attorney, Dahl, to consider the legality of proposals like this in the first place, which seem to very blatantly violate our basic constitutional rights. Thank you all very much.
Hello, I am Madeline Rutherford, 3390 Canyon Drive. I was glad to be present today to hear your discussion. I appreciate everybody's consideration of the liability that this cooperative plan would implicate our city with. I have some thoughts on how we are going about applying for or identifying grant opportunities. I know we've discussed a lot of domestic violence statistics and response and community engagement and community partners working together. And I think that there are opportunities and grants out there, maybe in the domestic violence space, or we have a high proportion of Native Americans in our city, and the missing and murdered Indigenous persons crisis is really large. And I'm sure that there are programs out there, grant funding, that can bring more law enforcement funding in a way that is cooperative with the public. This company, All Rise, brought this opportunity. I know the city staff aren't looking for opportunities for the DOJ to come in and run the city of Billings, but this company came to us, this nonprofit, came to us with an opportunity for them to make money. And I think that's very concerning for me. So thank you for your time.
Again, Ellis Tillery, 59101. I understand that we could really use this money. I know that late last year, we negotiated, the city negotiated with the police union, and their pay doesn't even go up, matching the cost of living increases year over year. But I do not think that this is a good way to get that money. It's a complete gamble. Because of the part of the bill that many have mentioned, if we invite ICE agents, which as we have seen have proven themselves to be and undertrained into the city, and one of them decides to get trigger happy, we're on the hook for the inevitable protests and demonstrations and the federal response that will come with those. The idea of the program is to make the current administration look good to its voter base outside of the city, not to help us here. It's also important to note that All Rise is not a local group. They're a national international organization. The excess of money available that would be available to us is also plainly ridiculous. Think about how the budget chart will look with the massive police budget. Where will all that extra money go? Because we won't have control over all of it. Will the federal government give it out to corporations and friends of the administration at the expense of us being subjected to surveillance? Why even ask for it when it puts us at risk of something like that? I think creating a system that incentivizes the characteristics reminiscent of a police state is ridiculous. As Ben Franklin said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. I also disagree with the application for the grant and advocacy for immigrants in the city who are at any stage of immigration from arriving to naturalization, since the federal government has started arresting immigrants who are doing it right to hit their politically motivated deportation quotas. Heightened tensions resulting from increased presence of immigration authorities creates a daily power imbalance between individuals that is based not upon merit nor upon the value they add to their community, but upon where they were born and if they did not have the privilege of starting life within the arbitrary stitches that make up the beautiful pocket of the earth that we are lucky enough to call home, then upon how fatefully they were able to manage being tossed around by a slow, broken system full of arbitrary and seemingly random action. Spending resources applying for this grant, if they're ours, is a bad idea, although I'm not against allowing All Rise to waste their money on it. Thank you.
Any other public comment on item number 3?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I couldn't resist. My name is Jack Hansen. I was born and raised here in Billings. I'm a property owner and taxpayer. I live in Ward 4. So I'm just up here to applaud you for what appears to be your impending decision not to move forward with this application for the Model Cities Initiative. The very application announcement is just out of step with what we want and need for public safety in this town. I think all of you recognize that in your own ways. I've negotiated a number of contracts in my life, and when something like this comes across the table as an opener, even as a feeler, you just get up and walk away from the table. I think you're about to do that, and I encourage you to press on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durbis. Any other public comment? All right, Ms. Dahl, I don't think we really need to go around the room. I did some polling as we were going along, and it looks like we have at least, of the 10, we have at least 9 thumbs down on this, so I did. I think I did. Well, I usually never gavel, Mr. Boyette. Thank you, Mr. Banker Boyette. So public comment is closed, and I think we're a no. Is that right, everybody? But thank you for bringing this forward. This type of public debate is healthy and it needs to be had. So thank you. We're going to move next to highlighting upcoming agenda items of council interest. Ms. Dahl, anything coming forward?
I spoke with Kevin about that, and he didn't have anything in particular that he wanted me to mention to you. The agenda is out for next Monday, so I would just simply highlight that.
Nice, thank you. Council discussion. As if we've not discussed enough. Anybody have anything else? We are getting ready for one final public comment, this time on non-agenda items. Anybody want to speak their mind about something that was not on the agenda tonight? I'm going to close public comment, and unless there is objection, I will adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you.